let's just stick on Hockenhull before we wrap up, Tom. Sometimes I think a young player can come into the side and the adrenaline of the moment can carry them through their first 4 or 5 games. And then actually it's what you see from maybe the 10th game onwards where you start to see what the real player in there is like. And we've seen it before, haven't we? We've seen a lot of players come into the first team as a youngster and they've immediately impressed, and then performances have slowly gone downhill, and ultimately they've proved to not be good enough, and they've fallen a little bit down the ladder, and they've not ended up maybe hitting the heights that we thought that they might do. The difference with Hockenhull is he's been out on loan. He has played a lot of football during his time at Tranmere. He's just not played it with Tranmere. And he's now come into the side. And I said to the people I was with yesterday, I said, he carries himself like he believes in himself. He walks around like he knows he can play football. And I thought there was maybe a 10, 15 minute in the period in the second half where he looked a little bit ropey. There were a few poor clearances and mistimed jumps. But generally, he played really well. And it's probably going to be a shootout, isn't it, between him and Bello for who stays next year. But I didn't think he was that bad again, Hockenhull.
I thought, yeah, you make a really good point there about youngsters coming in and adrenaline carry them. I think it's probably a little bit different for a centre half because you're not sprinting and running around like a headless chicken like maybe Craig Curran did when he broke into the side. You've got to be a bit more composed and you've got to track your man. Your position's got to be right. There's a bit more. Maybe that there might be technical players, ex-players out there who disagree with me, but I think in defence, there's more up in your head. You've got to focus. You've got to be a good. You've got to read the game well at the back. And I think that he handled himself very, very well. I think for me, there was a few moments in the first half where he maybe rushed himself on the ball, maybe hit a clearance when maybe he could have took a touch and passed his way out or just composed himself a bit. But I think generally the defending that he had to do, he did very, very well. It's probably a bit unfair to say based on seeing him for 2 games, and I don't dislike Joe Yarney to a point where I'd say get him out the club, but I would look at Hockenhull's performance and say it's probably as good as, if not better than what we've seen from Joe Yarney. So you say it's a shootout between Bellowan and Hockenhull. Well, where does Yarney come into it? Based on who's getting paid what, and if you're deciding, between the 3 of them, I think I would pick Bellowan and Hockenhull over Yarney. So I don't know. It's a tough one. Always going to be hard for a defender to break into the starting lineup, especially when it's 2 established players like Davis and Turnbull ahead of you. So it's going to be difficult for a youngster who's a centre half breaking through. But I do wish we'd given him more of an opportunity. I don't know where his head is going to be at. I'm assuming he is a Southerner because we got him from Brentford, didn't we? Will he?
No, it's from Warrington. Started at United. It's from Warrington.
Right. Well, that probably changes what I was going to say then. In that, I was saying maybe he would want to think, right, well, it hasn't worked out up here. I'll move down south. Well, that in itself is possibly an indication to me where he'd say, do you know what? I fancy it now. I've had a couple of games. I've proven myself at non-league level, and I've had a lot of games. If I have a good pre-season, I think I'm worth another year's contract or whatnot. I'd happily keep him on. I would happily keep him on because he's not going to be a massive wage. And he's shown that he can be put in the deep end and perform. So, yeah, delighted for him. Wasn't perfect. Little moments here and there where maybe it wasn't great. We've still conceded 2 goals. Their first goal is a bit of mispositioning from both of them. Bellowan stepped out a little bit and Hockenhull hasn't followed the run in behind. It's a good run from their striker. Their striker's done a lateral run across the line. He's got it in behind. So between the 2 of them, they've lost a man. But no, other than that, I think it was a good, solid performance from him. And I would like to see him get another year based on the 2 games that I've seen him play.